The laws of ritual slaughter. They contain 5 mitzvot, 3 positive commandments and 2 negative commandments. They are 1. To slaughter an animal and then to eat it. 2. Not to slaughter an animal and its offspring on the same day. 3. To cover the blood of slaughtered beasts and fowl. 4. Not to take a mother bird together with its young. 5. To send away the mother when taking her with her young. Thus, this book contains a total of 70 mitzvot, 8 positive commandments and 62 negative commandments. The book of utterances. It contains 4 halachot. They are, in order, the laws of oaths, the laws of vows, the laws of Nazarites, the laws of endowment evaluations and devotion offerings. The laws of oaths. They contain 5 mitzvot, 1 positive commandment and 4 negative commandments. They are 1. Not to swear in God's name falsely. 2. Not to take God's name in vain. 3. Not to deny having received an entrusted object. 4. Not to swear falsely when denying financial obligations. 5. To swear truly in God's name. The laws of vows. They contain 3 mitzvot, 2 positive commandments and 1 negative commandment. They are 1. To fulfill one's word and observe a vow which one takes. 2. Not to violate one's word. 3. To nullify a vow or an oath. This is the law of nullification of vows, as explicitly stated in the Torah. The laws of Nazarites. They contain 10 mitzvot, 2 positive commandments, and 8 negative commandments. They are 1. For a Nazarite to let his hair grow long. 2. For a Nazarite not cut his hair throughout the duration of his vow. 3. For a Nazarite not to drink wine or a mixture of wine even after it has become vinegar. 4. For a Nazarite not to eat fresh grapes. 5. For a Nazarite not to eat raisins. 6. For a Nazarite not to eat grape seeds. 7. For a Nazarite not to eat grape peels. 8. For a Nazarite not to enter the place of a corpse. 9. For a Nazarite not to become impure because of a corpse. 10. For a Nazarite to shave his hair in connection with his sacrifices when he completes his Nazarite vow or if he becomes impure. The laws of endowment valuations and devotion offerings. They contain 7 mitzvot, 5 positive commandments and 2 negative commandments. They are 1. To carry out the judgment concerning the endowment valuation of a person as prescribed by the Torah. These are the laws of the endowment valuations of humans. 2. The laws of the endowment valuations of animals. 3. The laws of the endowment valuations of houses. 4. The laws of the endowment valuations of fields. 5. The laws governing a person who makes a devoted offering of his property. 6. For property given as a devotion offering not to be sold. 7. For property given as a devotion offering not to be redeemed. Thus, this book contains a total of 25 mitzvot, 10 positive commandments, and 15 negative commandments. A book of agricultural laws. It contains 7 halachot. They are in order: the laws of mixing forbidden species, the laws of the gifts to be given to the poor, the laws of teruba, the laws of tithes, the laws of the second tithe and the produce of the 4th year, the laws of the first fruits, the laws of the sabbatical and jubilee years, the laws of mixing forbidden species. They contain 5 negative commandments. They are: 1. Not to sow different species of produce. 2. Not to sow grain or vegetables in a vineyard. 3. Not to crossbreed different species of animals. 4. Not to work with 2 different species of animals together. 5. Not to wear a garment made from a forbidden mixture of fabrics. The laws of the gifts to be given to the poor. They contain 13 mitzvot, 7 positive commandments, and 6 negative commandments. They are: 1. To leave payah for the poor. 2. Not to gather the payah. 3. To leave leket for the poor. 4. Not to gather the leket. 5. To leave the incompletely formed grape clusters for the poor. 6. Not to gather the incompletely formed grape clusters. 7. To leave individual fallen grapes for the poor. 8. Not to gather the individual fallen grapes. 9. To leave a forgotten sheaf for the poor. 10. Not to return to take a forgotten sheaf. 11. To separate the tithe for the poor. 12. To give charity according to one's ability. 13. Not to harden one's heart against giving to the poor. The laws of Teruma. They contain 8 mitzvot, 2 positive commandments and 6 negative commandments. They are 1. To separate the great terumah. 2. To separate terumah from the tithes. 3. Not to separate one of the terumot or tithes before the proper one, but rather to separate all the obligations in order. 4. For an unauthorized person not to eat terumah. 5. For even a priest's tenant or hired worker not to eat terumah. 6. For an uncircumcised person not to eat terumah. 7. For a priest who is ritually impure not to eat terumah. 8. For a kalala not to eat terumah or partake of the sacred offerings. The laws of tithes. They contain 1 mitzvah, to separate the first tithe each year the land is tilled and give it to the Levites. The laws of the second tithe and the produce of the 4th year. They contain 9 mitzvot, 3 positive commandments and 6 negative commandments. They are 1. To separate the second tithe. 2. Not to use the proceeds of the second tithe for any human need other than food, drink, or anointing oneself. 3. Not to partake of the second tithe while ritually impure. 4. Not to partake of the second tithe while in mourning. 5. Not to partake of the second tithe of grain outside Jerusalem. 6. Not to partake of the second tithe of wine outside Jerusalem. 7. Not to partake of the second tithe of olive oil outside Jerusalem. 8. For the entire produce of the 4th year to be consecrated, for it to be eaten in Jerusalem by its owners, conforming in all matters to the laws governing the second tithe. 9. To make the declaration associated with the giving of tithes. The laws of the first fruits, and also the laws governing the other presents given to the priests. They contain 9 mitzvot, 8 positive commandments and 1 negative commandment. They are 1. To separate the first fruits and bring them to the temple. 2. For a priest not to partake of the first fruits outside of Jerusalem. 3. To recite the declaration associated with the first fruits. 4. To separate halakha and give it to a priest. 5. To give the shank bone, jaw, and maw to a priest. 6. To give him the first shearings of our flocks. 7. To redeem a firstborn son, and to give the money with which he is redeemed to the priest. 8. To redeem a firstling donkey, and to give the animal with which it is redeemed to the priest. 9. To decapitate a firstling donkey if one does not want to redeem it. The laws of the sabbatical and jubilee years. They contain 22 mitzvot, 9 positive commandments and 13 negative commandments. They are 1. To allow the land to lie fallow from all agricultural work in the 7th year. 2. Not to do any agricultural work on the land during this year. 3. Not to do any agricultural work with trees during this year. 4. Not to harvest produce that grows on its own in the normal manner. 5. Not to harvest the vines in the normal manner. 6. To renounce ownership over all of the earth's produce. 7. To renounce all debts owed one. 8. Not to demand payment or seek to collect a debt. 9. Not to refrain from lending money before the Shemitah year, lest one's money be lost. 10. To count the years in cycles of 7. 11. To sanctify the 50th Jubilee year. 12. To blow the shofar on the 10th of Tishrei of the Jubilee, so that the Hebrew servants will be released. 13. Not to work the land in this year. 14. Not to harvest produce that grows on its own in the normal manner. 15. Not to harvest the vines in the normal manner. 16. To release the land in this year. These are the laws which apply to ancestral property and purchased property. 17. For the land not to be sold permanently. 18. The laws governing houses in a walled city. 19. For the tribe of Levi not to be given an inheritance in Eretz Israel. Instead, they are given gifts of cities in which to dwell. 20. For the tribe of Levi not to be given a portion of the spoils of war. 21. To give the Levites cities in which to dwell, and to give them open land around these cities. 22. For these open lands never to be sold in a permanent manner, but rather for them to be able to be redeemed at all times both before the Jubilee year and afterwards. Thus, this book contains a total of 67 mitzvot, 30 positive commandments and 37 negative commandments. The book is the temple and its service. It contains 9 halakhot. They are in order: the laws of God's chosen house, the laws governing the temple utensils and those who serve therein, the laws governing entrance to the temple, the laws governing animals forbidden to be sacrificed on the altar, the laws of the sacrificial procedures, the laws of daily and special offerings, the laws of offerings that have become unacceptable for sacrifice, the laws of the Yom Kippur service, the laws of misuse of sacred property, the laws of God's chosen house. They contain 6 mitzvah, 3 positive commandments, and 3 negative commandments. They are: 1. To build a temple. 2. Not to build the altar with hewn stone. 3. Not to ascend the altar with steps. 4. To fear the temple. 5. To keep watch around the temple. 6. Not to nullify the watch around the temple. The laws governing the temple utensils and those who serve therein, they contain 14 mitzvot, 6 positive commandments, and 8 negative commandments. They are: 1. To make the anointing oil. 2. Not to make other oil which resembles it. 3. Not to pour it on the skin of an unauthorized person. 4. Not to mix incense using the same formula as the incense offering. 5. Not to offer anything on the golden altar with the exception of the incense offering. 6. To carry the ark on one's shoulders. 7. That the ark's staves not be removed from it. 8. For the Levites to serve in the temple. 9. That a person appointed to one function in the temple should not perform a task that was assigned to a different individual. 10. To sanctify the priests in preparation for temple service. 11. For the members of all the priestly watches to be given equal opportunity during the festivals. 12. To wear the priestly garments when serving in the temple. 13. For the high priest's cloak not to be torn. 14. For the breastplate not to move from the ephod. The laws governing entrance to the temple. They contain 15 mitzvah, 2 positive commandments, and 13 negative commandments. They are: for a drunken person not to enter the temple. 2. For a person with overly long hair not to enter the temple. 3. For a person with torn garments not to enter the temple. 4. For a priest not to enter the temple building at any time he desires. 5. For a priest not to leave the temple in the midst of service. 6. To send away the ritually impure from the temple. 7. For the ritually impure not to enter the temple. 8. For certain categories of the ritually impure not to enter the temple mount. 9. For one who is ritually impure not to serve in the temple. 10. For one who is ritually impure and immersed himself in a mikveh not to serve in the temple on the day of his immersion. 11. For a priest serving in the temple to sanctify his hands and feet. 12. For a priest with a disqualifying physical blemish not to enter the temple building or approach the altar. 13. For a priest with a disqualifying physical blemish not to serve in the temple. 14. For a priest with a disqualifying physical blemish of a temporary nature not to serve in the temple. 15. For an unauthorized person not to serve in the temple. The laws governing animals forbidden to be sacrificed on the altar. They contain 14 mitzvot, 4 positive commandments and 10 negative commandments. They are: 1. To offer all the sacrifices in an unblemished state. 2. Not to dedicate an animal with a disqualifying physical blemish for sacrifice. 3. Not to slaughter an animal with a disqualifying physical blemish as a sacrifice. 4. Not to sprinkle the blood of an animal with a disqualifying physical blemish. 5. Not to burn the fats of an animal with a disqualifying physical blemish. 6. Not to sacrifice an animal with a disqualifying physical blemish of a temporary nature. 7. Not to sacrifice an animal with a disqualifying physical blemish even when offered by Gentiles. 8. Not to inflict a disqualifying physical blemish on an animal that was consecrated for sacrificial use. 9. To redeem an animal that was set aside for sacrificial use, which possesses a disqualifying physical blemish. 10. To sacrifice an animal only after the 8th day. Before that time, it is considered as lacking sufficient time and cannot be sacrificed. 11. Not to offer as a sacrifice an animal given as a prostitute's fee or given in exchange for a dog. 12. Not to offer sacrifices that contain a leavening agent or a sweetener. 13. To salt all sacrifices. 14. Not to forget to place salt on any sacrifice. The laws of the sacrificial procedures. They contain 23 mitzvot, 10 positive commandments and 13 negative commandments. They are 1. To offer the burnt offerings in accordance with the procedure stated in the Torah. 2. Not to eat the meat of the burnt offerings. 3. The procedure for a sin offering. 4. Not to eat the meat of those sin offerings whose blood was brought inside the temple building. 5. Not to cut off the head entirely when slaying a bird brought as a sin offering. 6. The procedure for a guilt offering. 7. That the priests should eat the meat of the sacrifices of the most sacred order within the temple. 8. That the meat of these sacrifices should not be eaten outside the temple courtyard. 9. That an unauthorized person should not partake of the sacrifices of the most sacred order. 10. The procedure for a peace offering. 11. Not to eat from the sacrifices of a lesser degree of holiness before the sprinkling of their blood. 12. To offer the meal offerings in accordance with the procedure stated in the Torah. 13. Not to put oil on a meal offering brought by a sinner. 14. Not to put frankincense upon it. 15. For a meal offering brought by a priest not to be eaten. 16. For a meal offering not to be baked from leaven. 17. For the priests to eat the remaining portions of the meal offerings. 18. For a person to bring the sacrifices that he pledged to bring, and the animals he pledged to offer as sacrifices to be offered on the first festival that comes. 19. Not to delay bringing the sacrifices that one pledged to bring, the animals one pledged to offer as sacrifices, or the other pledges one has taken upon himself. 20. To offer all the sacrifices in the temple. 21. To bring sacrifices from the diaspora to the temple. 22. Not to slaughter a sacrifice outside the temple courtyard. 23. Not to offer a sacrifice outside the temple courtyard. The laws of daily and special offerings. They contain 19 mitzvot, 18 positive commandments, and 1 negative commandment. They are 1. To offer 2 yams every day. 2. To kindle the fire of the altar every day. 3. Not to extinguish the fire of the altar. 4. To remove the ashes from the altar every day. 5. To offer the incense offering every day. 6. To light the candles of the menorah every day. 7. For the high priest to offer a meal offering every day. It is called minchat chavitin. 8. To sacrifice an additional 2 lambs as a musaf offering on the Sabbath. 9. To offer the showbread. 10. To bring a musaf offering on Rosh Hodesh. 11. To bring a musaf offering on Pesach. 12. To bring the Omer offering, which is waived. 13. For every individual to count 7 weeks from the day the Omer was offered. 14. To bring a musaf offering on Shavuot. 15. To bring the 2 loaves of bread and the sacrifices which accompany the loaves on Shavuot. 16. To bring a musaf offering on Rosh Hashanah. 17. To bring a musaf offering on the fast of Yom Kippur. 18. To bring a musaf offering on the holiday of Sukkot. 19. To bring a musaf offering on Shemini Atzeret. Laws of offerings that have become unacceptable for sacrifice. They contain 8 mitzvot, 2 positive commandments, and 6 negative commandments. They are 1. Not to partake of sacred foods that have become disqualified because of blemishes or due to other reasons. 2. Not to eat pigel. 3. Not to partake of sacred foods after the time prescribed for their consumption. 4. Not to partake of notar meat from the sacrifices which remains after the time prescribed for their consumption. 5. Not to partake of sacred foods that have become impure. 6. For a person who becomes impure not to partake of sacred foods. 7. To burn notar. 8. to burn sacrificial offerings that have become impure. The laws of the Yom Kippur service. They contain one mitzvah: to perform the service of Yom Kippur, the sacrifices, the confessions, the sending away of the goat, and the other aspects of the service, in accordance with the order prescribed in the Parsha of Acharei Mot. The laws of misuse of sacred property. They contain 3 mitzvot, 1 positive commandment and 2 negative commandments. They are: 1. For a person who sins by misusing sacred property to make recompense, adding 1/5 of the article's value and offering a sacrifice. This is the law pertaining to a mo'il. 2. Not to work with animals which were consecrated. 3. Not to shear animals which were consecrated. Thus, this book contains a total of 103 mitzvot, 47 positive commandments, and 56 negative commandments. The Book of Sacrifices. It contains 6 halachot. They are, in order: the laws of the paschal offering, the laws of the festive offering, the laws of the firstling animals, the laws of the offerings to atone for unintentional transgression, the laws of the offerings brought by those whose process of atonement is incomplete, the laws of offerings which were substituted one for another, the laws of the paschal offering. They contain 16 mitzvot, 4 positive commandments, and 12 negative commandments. They are: 1. To slaughter the paschal sacrifice at its appropriate time. 2. Not to slaughter it while in possession of chametz. 3. Not to allow the portions burned on the altar to remain overnight. 4. To slaughter the second paschal sacrifice. 5. To eat the meat of the paschal sacrifice together with matzot and bitter herbs on the night of the 15th of Nisan. 6. To eat the meat of the second paschal sacrifice on the night of the 15th of the second month. 7. Not to partake of the paschal sacrifice raw or boiled. 8. Not to take the meat of the paschal sacrifice out of the group in which it is eaten. 9. Not to allow an apostate to partake of it. 10. Not to allow a resident alien or a Jew's hired worker to partake of it. 11. Not to allow an uncircumcised person to partake of it. 12. Not to break a bone of it. 13. Not to break a bone in the second paschal sacrifice. 14. Not to allow the paschal sacrifice to remain until the morning. 15. Not to allow the second paschal sacrifice to remain until the morning. 16. Not to allow the meat from the festive offering brought on the 14th of Nisan to remain until the morning of the 3rd day. The laws of the festive offering. They contain 6 mitzvot, 4 positive commandments, and 2 negative commandments. They are: 1. To present oneself before God. 2. To celebrate on the 3 pilgrimage festivals. 3. To rejoice on the festivals. 4. Not to appear before God empty-handed. 5. Not to abandon the Levi, but rather to have him rejoice and give him the presents due him on the festivals. 6. To gather together the people during the Sukkot festival during the year following the Shemitah year. The laws of the firstling animals. They contain 5 mitzvot, 2 positive commandments, and 3 negative commandments. They are: 1. To separate the firstling animals as a sacrifice. 2. Not to partake of an unblemished firstling animal outside Jerusalem. 3. Not to redeem a firstling animal. 4. To separate the tithes of one's herds. 5. Not to redeem the tithes of one's herds. I have included the laws of the tithes of one's herds together with the laws of the firstling animals, because the same procedure is followed with regard to both of them. The Torah also groups the 2 together in the verse, Numbers 18:17, and you shall dash their blood. According to the oral tradition, we learn that this refers to the blood of the tithes of one's herds and the blood of the firstling animals. The laws of the offerings, to atone for an intentional transgression. They contain 5 positive commandments. They are: 1. That a person who inadvertently violates a transgression should bring a fixed sin offering. 2. That a person who does not know whether or not he violated a transgression should bring a guilt offering, unless he discovers that he definitely transgressed, at which time he must bring a sin offering. This guilt offering is referred to as the conditional guilt offering. 3. That a person who commits certain sins should bring a guilt offering to atone for their violation. This is referred to as the definite guilt offering. 4. For a person who commits certain sins to offer a sacrifice in atonement. If he is rich, he should offer an animal. If he is poor, a fowl or the tenth of an ephah of meal. This is referred to as the adjustable guilt offering. 5. For the Sanhedrin to offer a sacrifice if they render an erroneous decision regarding one of the serious matters of Torah law. The laws of the offerings brought by those whose process of atonement is incomplete. They contain 4 positive commandments. They are: 1. For a zava to offer a sacrifice when she becomes ritually pure. 2. For a woman who gives birth to offer a sacrifice when she becomes ritually pure. 3. For a zava to offer a sacrifice when he becomes ritually pure. 4. For a person afflicted by tzara'at to offer a sacrifice when he becomes ritually pure. After the offering of these sacrifices, the process of purification of these individuals is completed. The laws of offerings, which were substituted one for another, they contain 3 mitzvot, 1 positive commandment and 2 negative commandments. They are: 1. Not to substitute another animal for one designated as a sacrifice. 2. For an animal that was substituted for one designated as a sacrifice to be considered consecrated. 3. Not to change animals that were consecrated from one category of holiness to another. Thus, this book contains a total of 39 mitzvot, 20 positive commandments and 19 negative commandments. Please share this video and take a look for more videos on this channel, and let's spread the goodness. Be well.